Greetings, everyone. Dr. Brian Scott with you again today. We are continuing this week studying the deterioration of our moral values and our spiritual values in our society. This is Insights to the End Times. I'm Dr. Brian Scott. We have been sharing over the last year and a half with you, where are we on God's timetable as we approach the end of the age? And that age that we're speaking of will culminate in 7 years of tribulation according to the scriptures. And that culminates with the Battle of Armageddon. And we have on the scene the Antichrist ruling and reigning over the earth. And we have things like the mark of the beast and so on and so on and so on. And as we've been studying this, we've been seeing that we're getting closer and closer to the time when the Antichrist will come on the scene and be revealed. Right now, we're living in the pre-Antichrist period. We're living in the period when the spirit of the Antichrist is everywhere. We're seeing it in everything. And that's what we've been examining. These natural, worldly events that are occurring are pointing us more and more to that time when things will change. Earlier this week, in our sessions, we were looking at how the impression of God and the nature of God and the character of God has been changing according to the pulpit ministry of many, many ministers. Things are being downgraded. We've seen how Jesus, his life, his death, his resurrection are being questioned. Many are saying he didn't even die. Many are saying that if he did die, he was not raised from the dead. Many are saying he was just a really good prophet. He was never the Son of Man, and on the distortion goes. And if you listen to enough of this long enough, you begin to believe it. This is the problem. These shifts in thinking are the result of what Paul describes in 1 Timothy 4:1 as deceiving spirits or seducing spirits and demonic doctrines. And we've talked about this many, many times. Now, last Saturday, a week, like 3 or 4 days ago, last Saturday, I shared with you that truth, T-R-U-T-H, is becoming a very, very scarce commodity. It's almost non-existent today. You can hardly find it today. And what you are hearing presented to you as truth in most cases is not truth. It's a mistruth. Now, during the recent pandemic, if you did not agree with the material being presented to you, no matter what you said or how you said it, it was labeled as a mistruth, as a misrepresentation, as a, it was ignored. So we were forced into one train of thought and one train of thought only. Well, maybe you agreed with that, maybe you didn't. But you didn't have the right to question anything is what I'm getting at. What I want to share with you today is how we're seeing a change occur in our language. We're seeing a change occur in the way it's presented to us. We're seeing terms that we've never seen before. And there's a reason for that. It's a strategic plan that the Antichrist spirit has brought into the land today, which you may or may not recognize. But let me share some thoughts with you. Words, the meaning of words has changed. In many cases, it's changed. For instance, in criminal terms, this is where a lot of change has occurred. A juvenile delinquent, most of us would recognize that term and recognize what it means, but today that's not the term used. Now the term used is a young person impacted by the justice system. Isn't that a nice term? A person who's an offender, that's another term that goes back in our historical records, like the term I was raised with was offender. But now it's a justice-involved person. We want to soften the blow. We don't want to hurt the person's feelings. We want to present them in the right light. We don't want to discriminate against them. Da-da, da-da, da-da. Oh, my gracious. A convict is someone who's been convicted of a crime and is likely going to go behind prison walls to serve time. But we don't call them a convict anymore. We don't want to hurt their feelings. So we call them a currently incarcerated person. Wow. A parolee is someone who's been released from prison and still has to report in on an ongoing basis. But that really labels them. So we don't want to do that. We call them a person under supervision. And on it goes. These name changes are to reveal or present these situations in a more positive, uplifting light, as opposed to the fact that they are related to criminal activities. And you know the end result? Since we have begun using these new terms in some of the American cities, as a for instance, the crime rates have just gone through the roof. Now we notice here, I'm in Ontario, Canada, and we notice here that we've had more crime in the last couple of years than we have had in previous years combined. The rate of car thefts is absolutely phenomenal. We have more gun-related situations occurring than we've ever had. And of course, in our society, as compared to the United States, guns are not an everyday utensil. It is almost impossible to get a license to even own a gun. But the only people who have the use of guns here are those who are conducting, I can't say criminal offenses. That's not the term we want to use anymore. Okay, you see where I'm coming from, I hope. Now, government policies are changing all the time to protect people who are guilty and exposes people who are victims to more attack than the guilty person. Our laws seem to be protecting the guilty as opposed to protecting the victims. It's unbelievable. So these names are changing all the time. Wow. It's amazing. Let me give you a personal illustration for just a moment as we close this session. I attended university in the 1970s. And as we come into 2024, I will be celebrating my 50th year, my 50th anniversary of graduating from the Honors Business Administration program at the local university. And when we were in these classes, we were focusing on the courses, the business courses. That's our focus. I went to law school following that, and we focused on legal courses. But now the universities are really focused on cultural matters and social matters and diversity issues and inclusivity issues and so on and so on. And the end result is that we have students coming out of university today whose manner of thinking and manner of beliefs is far different than ours were. It's almost impossible to have a conversation with them. They have become so wokish. If you were to speak out against some of those kinds of thoughts, you are really going to be chastised. You're going to be isolated. You're going to be denigrated because the university programs have shifted and changed. I heard a situation which really bothered me of a university professor, a long-tenured professor, giving a final exam. Some of the students who had barely attended classes and therefore their grade partially based on attendance, partially based on the final exam, they ended up with a poor grade. They did very poorly on the exam. So they go to the dean of the faculty and they indicate that, hey, we really studied hard for the exam. We should have received a really good grade. This professor has discriminated against us. The end result, they got a high grade and the professor was released. The cart is driving the horse today. Things are upside down. Things have changed. Deception is everywhere. I tune in tomorrow.